I'm Shadan Larki of Awards Buzz here with Liza Marshall, nominated for Best Picture at the Oscars for Hamnet. Liza, welcome.
Hello, nice
Con
to be here.
yeah, congratulations on your very first Oscar nomination. How are you feeling? I feel like you have a post-nomination glow about you.
Well, I've just got back from the nominees' lunch,
Oh,
which literally straight back in. So that was very fun. It was great to get called up. Everyone gets called up onto the stage one by one, which was fun.
how was the class photo? Did you feel like you're back in school?
Yeah, yeah. Haven't done one of those for years, obviously. It was great.
Well, I'm glad to hear it. Like I said, thank you so much for making time for me on a very busy and very special day. I wanted to start by asking you at what point in the process you joined the creation of Hamnet.
Well, right at the beginning, because I was the person that optioned the book before it was published back in October 2019. So I was sent the book as a PDF from Maggie's agent, and I was a huge fan of Maggie O'Farrell's previous novels. So it came into my inbox, and I just was really excited, sat down, read it pretty much in one sitting,
Mhm.
and completely fell in love with the book and thought it was such a, obviously, sad, but so powerful story of Agnes and what happened to her son and the kind of creation of Hamlet that I just thought it would make the most wonderful film. So I said that to Maggie's agent, got on Zoom with her and persuaded her to let me have the rights to the book. So it all started there.
Well, I too am absolutely obsessed with Maggie O'Farrell. When you were reading it, I mean, because I read it knowing that it was going to be a movie. So I sort of was, I had already started to imagine the world. Did you sort of immediately start to imagine, or did you try to just read it, as the story first? Like, what was going through your mind?
Well, I guess when I read it, I thought it's so cinematic. I think the way that she paints pictures with words, I mean, it's a very interior book, but just the way she describes nature and, Agnes's role in the house and what she does. And I just could really see it as a film. And I just thought it was beautiful. And also, I think, when I'm looking for material, I always like to option really great books because I think it's much easier to get a filmmaker if you have a great book. And I just had a sense that it would be really popular.
Well,
Um,
I mean, you mentioned sort of having to convince Maggie. I believe that this is the first adaptation of one of her novels. What was that conversation like? Was she hesitant to have the film made, or was she open to
I mean, she was really open to it. I think we're exactly the same age and we just really connected when we met. And we've actually become really good friends since then, which is such a privilege because she's such an amazing novelist and but so normal and lovely.
this?
And yeah, we just really, I don't know, clicked, I suppose, when we talked about what the film could be. And I guess what I really loved about the book was putting Agnes at the center of the narrative, which is something that Maggie and all of her research really was struck by. She started off being obsessed with Hamnet and Shakespeare having a son who had died. But then the more she researched it, the more she felt angry, I think, that Agnes, first of all, she's been called Anne Hathaway in the last 400 years. But actually, when you go back and you look at her father's will, she was actually called Agnes. And, she's been written about in history as this older woman that entrapped the young boy genius. And actually, there's absolutely no evidence for that at all. It's 400 years of scholarship, just imagining what might have happened. So I just really liked the way she pulled Agnes from the shadows of history and essentially retold the story from her point of view. And that's something that I particularly was drawn to.
And I'm really curious as a producer, when you have something that you love as a base, in some ways that makes it easier because as you said, there's this rich world that you can imagine, but maybe in some ways it's more difficult because you do feel an attachment to the words that already exist. Where do you fall on that spectrum of sort of excitement versus pressure?
I mean, I think there was quite the more successful the book became, it sold over 1 million copies in the UK alone, which is a lot for a literary novel. And I guess the more successful it became and the more people who told me it was their favorite book, the pressure is all the greater on you because as we know, most books made into films, you think, no, the book was better. So that was a huge pressure. And obviously just wanting to have Maggie at the center of the process and, make a film that she was proud of. Because you have to lose a lot from a book when you're turning, a book takes you hours to read it and you've only got 90 minutes or so, 2 hours in a film. So I think having her on board as, co-writing it with Chloe was hugely helpful because she was quite clear-sighted about what could go. And I think that was a really useful process.
You know, Liza, I was looking through sort of the projects that you've optioned and been a producer. Like, I was trying to find a through line, and I feel like you've worked on all sorts of things. What would you say is maybe the connective tissue, and how has this experience of Hamnet shaped what you might do in the future?
That's a really good question. I suppose I'm just drawn to kind of singular points of view and great material. I mean, we made a TV show called What It Feels Like for a Girl recently on the BBC, which got incredible reviews. And it was it's a trans woman's memoir of growing up in Hucknall in the north of England in the early 2000s. And that really felt like a story that you hadn't seen before and felt really special. And I guess I've done quite a lot of book adaptations across my career. I did a TV show called Mary and George, which was about this phenomenal woman called Mary Villiers, who's been completely written out of history, but she was an incredibly smart woman who essentially used her very handsome second son to elevate herself to become James I's most powerful advisor or woman in his court. And I just think there's so many untold stories of women, particularly, but also just unique points of view. And I just have to fall in love with something as a like a piece of material because it takes years to get anything made. So you just have to love it at the start because otherwise, you're on a hiding to nothing.
Well, I mean, as you mentioned, the book was very beloved, but the movie I think exists kind of like as a companion. I mean, I think you can enjoy them both on their own because there's so much that the movie adds that's not in the book, and they're different and similar at the same time, if that makes sense. So talk to me about that. I love what you said about sort of centering Jesse and Agnes and like the because we don't, you're so right that sort of she's been erased from history and or projected upon in so many ways.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that was so important to Maggie and also to Chloe as well. When we sent her the project, was looking to make a film about a witchy woman, which was just one of those brilliant happenstance things that happened on this film, and it was all, yeah, it was just great. And I think, and obviously Jesse's so extraordinary as Agnes, that yeah, it all worked out really well.
Well, I have to ask you about, you know, uh, I guess the reaction to the film and the catharsis that it's giving people and the experience that they're having in viewing it. What is that like for you, especially because I mean, you've been with this project literally from its infancy before that even. I mean, you were reading it as a PDF. So how gratifying is that?
It's just totally amazing, to be honest, and it's beyond our wildest dreams. I mean, you really want to make a film that connects with people, but just seeing, particularly internationally, it's been a huge hit in the UK, but in France and Germany and Spain, it's been at number one at the box office. And it's just so amazing that something that I read so many years ago is connecting with people, and people are wanting that experience of going into a dark cinema with strangers and having a big emotional reaction to something and coming out. And as you say, it's kind of cathartic. And I think at the end you feel hope. The world is such a difficult place at the moment, and I think there's something in this film that's uniting people, and people are, we've heard stories of people actually sitting in the cinema and watching the credits roll until the lights come on because it really has a deep effect on people. And then people are almost talking to each other when they, to that people they don't know as they come out of the cinema. And so we're all so thrilled by that emotional reaction.
And I find it's a movie that for me, like the more I sit with it, and I've seen it several times, the more it sort of grows, and I notice sort of these little things. I mean, has that been true for you in sort of the different ways that you've experienced it through all the festivals and viewings? Like, do you find that your relationship to it has morphed in some way?
Yeah, I mean, I think the more, because you watch it so many times when, in the making of it and the post-production of it. And I think seeing it, the first time we saw it finished with an audience was at Telluride. And it was, relatively quite a small cinema. And you could hear everyone around you sniffing and, it was really clear the emotional power of it. But then we saw it at the Toronto Film Festival and at London where they had about 1,700 people in the screening room. And even in London, actually, it did make me cry, even though I've seen it, but that final bit when she gets to the globe, it doesn't diminish in emotional power that even if you've seen it hundreds of times. It's just just such a superb bit of filmmaking and acting from Chloe and Jesse and all of our extras as well, who were so amazing in that scene.
And I think the beauty of it is it changes depending on where you are in your sort of own emotional state when you watch it. Like
Yeah.
sometimes it's a little bit more cathartic. Sometimes you pick up on a little bit more of the drama or the suspense. I don't know. It kind of morphs with your own emotional state. And that's how it's been for me.
Oh, that's good. How many
Yeah.
times have you seen it?
4 or 5. I saw it at TIFF, but then I
Wow.
saw it now it's played in theaters. So I saw it with every group of friends that wanted to see it. I went along.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, Liza, so what is next for you? Obviously, we're looking forward to March and the Oscars, but what's next for you? Do you have anything in the pipeline that you can tell me about?
We've got a film called The Return of Stanley Atwell that we're shooting fairly soon with a writer-director called Brian Welsh, exec produced by Steven Soderbergh, which is great. We're shooting in the UK. And I've got a TV show that we haven't announced yet, but that is happening later on this year. And, I'm just really keen to do more films to come to your earlier question about, what's next. Yeah, because I just think people are maybe being too negative about the end of cinema and people not wanting to go to actual cinemas. Because I think if you can find the right film, people will come out.
Yeah.
So.
And that's a great positive note to end on. Is there anything that I haven't asked you about that you wanted to mention?
I don't know. I mean, we just worked with so many incredibly talented people on the film, and it really was like a family, all the different heads of department and the cast and everybody. It was such a positive experience. And I think people feel really changed having worked on the film.
Mhm. And I've gotten to speak to many of them, and they all echo the same thing. So that's
Yeah.
just
And it all comes from Chloe, it really does. It comes from Chloe down. I mean, first of all, she's not a very hierarchical person, so that's maybe the wrong thing to say, but I think she enables everybody around her in a really incredible way to do their best work. And, everybody really brought it to this film from, set design to music to absolutely everybody. So it was like a real joy of collaboration.
Well, I wish you the best of luck and thank you again for giving me a sliver of your very busy day. And I
Thanks
so
so much.
look forward to your future projects and thank
Great.
you so much for your time.
Great. Lovely to meet you.
Lovely to meet you as well.